for the vaccine by May the 1st. But reaching herd immunity will take a lot of shots in a lot of arms. One man in Pennsylvania saw a need for help and sprung into action. Mayank Amin, owner of Skipak Pharmacy in Schwenksville, has been working non-stop since his drugstore received state approval to administer the vaccine in January. Dr. Mac, as he's known, has set up multiple pop-up vaccination clinics, even going door-to-door with the vaccine, and he's proof that anyone can be a superhero in their own community. Mayank Amin, pharmacist and owner of Skipak Pharmacy in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, joins me now. Dr. Mac, as I think you're known, thank you so much for coming on the show. What inspired you to hold these vaccination clinics and go door to door? And I have to ask as well, where did the idea for a Superman costume come from?
Thanks so much for having me here. The idea of the superhero costume actually came from inspiration of going out to a child's house. We had the opportunity on New Year's Eve to go out and surprise a child with a medication that he couldn't find anywhere. So we actually went and we compounded a medication, knocked on his door, and the last delivery of the year, of course, was one that we were going to make special. I had an extra costume hanging in my closet, and when I saw that child's face when he opened the door, he actually thought Superman had arrived to his house to drop off his medicine. That was just the initial phase of me wearing this costume, and then when the pandemic hit, it was another reason for us to put the costume back on. On Super Bowl Sunday, we received 1,000 vaccines, and at that time, we really didn't know that they were coming. And over here in the Northeast, there was about 8 inches of snow out on the ground, and we had to decide quick of whether we were going to move forward with that clinic or not. And 100 volunteers came together and said, no matter what the condition is out there, we're going to get these vaccines into people's arms, and so we did. And since then, it's continued. We've been doing lots of homebound patients and pop-up clinics throughout the county.
And one of the ways you're doing homebound patients is by using an ultra-cold freezer that you have for the Pfizer vaccine that needs to be kept cold. That's helped you get to those people who are at home. What is their reaction when you turn up with these vaccines and with the aid of a freezer?
This weekend, we actually did a few homebound patients in a town nearby us called Norristown, and there was a team of us. We literally knock on their door. It's like winning $1 million ticket. They don't have an idea that we're coming there. And as they opened the door, the lady was in disbelief. It was a patient's nurse that opened the door. And then as we walked in, she was completely shocked. And on top of that, to see that someone dressed up in a Superman costume is there at her house, she was mind blown. And I hope it's something that she'll remember forever. And it's not a one-man team. There are 450 volunteers that are working with me around the clock. Today, we just finished about a half hour ago, the last clinic of the weekend. About 4,000 shots were given out in the last 50 hours.
And look, I have great admiration for what you're doing and your volunteer friends. That's why I invited you on the show. But given we have communities, rural communities, elderly homebound patients, marginalized communities, not getting the same access to the vaccine as everyone else, this needs to be done in a more coherent way, doesn't it, by the federal government, by state governments, by counties?
It definitely does. And that's why now we've started working with our county and state partners to identify the individuals or the areas that were hit hardest by COVID. For example, we were in Norristown this past weekend. That was a pop-up clinic that we planned within 48 hours. And we realized there was a 10% COVID rate, the highest in our county. So we worked with the county to identify that. And we actually just opened up in an area where a lot of the individuals may not have been able to drive out to a county clinic or to a pharmacy. So we're starting to realize that, and we're working more and more with our county and state partners to identify those areas and even homebound patients and going out to their homes now.
And how many vaccines have you administered so far in this, shall I call it, outside-the-box way?
In the past month, we've administered about 8,000 vaccines.
8,000, wow. And I have to ask, I read somewhere that you used to be a wedding planner for Indian weddings. And as someone who's had an Indian wedding, I know how complicated that can be. How much of those skills did you bring over to this new operation?
So Indian weddings, for those who don't know, have many, many people. The largest wedding I did had 1,400 individuals. There was an elephant what the groom arrived on, and he left in a Lamborghini. There's a lot of logistics involved in Indian weddings, many days. Likewise, we get to plan the best day of someone's life when we do weddings. This is probably the second best day of their life when they get the COVID vaccine. And today, 1,600 people got a second dose vaccine here in Skipak, and they were ecstatic.
I'm sure they're ecstatic, and you are doing the Lord's work, as the saying goes. Dr. Mayank Amin, appreciate you doing what you do, especially the way you do it. I very much enjoy the Superman costume. I'm sure your patients and the people in Pennsylvania appreciate it too. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So Dr. Mack isn't the only one doing his part to encourage